In this video, I'm going to talk about my favorite stealth camping setups. Hopefully this will help you when you plan your next stealth camp. So I'm going to go through the different setups I use and why, and at the end I'm going to share my very favorite stealth camping setup. The first setup for a stealth camp is the humble tent. I know a lot of people start off with this setup. That's what I did. I mean, it seems the most comfortable one, the one you're most familiar with, maybe from family camping holidays and things like that. And you don't have to spend a fortune really to begin with, because there are some quite reasonably priced tents which you can buy, which are not going to cost you a fortune, and then you can go on your first stealth camp. Now, some of the advantages are it's familiar, it keeps you dry, you've got somewhere to store your clothes, and you've got somewhere that's sort of private, so you feel like you've got your own space, you're in your own cocoon, your own environment, you feel more comfortable generally, especially when you're starting off. And you can also get changed inside, and you can get up in bad weather, get changed, get ready under cover, which is obviously a great advantage. You can also escape mosquitoes and midges, which is very helpful, especially in the summer. Some of the disadvantages though of a tent are you can't really see around you, you can't see what's going on, and you sometimes hear noises, you think, what's that? And it's outside your tent, but you dare not open up the tent and look out. Another disadvantage is you have to find a flat piece of ground. I mean, usually you'll find ground that's got rocks in it, or it's bumpy like this ground here. It's very rarely flat. If you can't find a flat piece of ground, that can be very uncomfortable. And if you're going to sleep in windy weather or go out in a storm, which I don't really recommend, then you're going to have to get a higher specification and quality tent, which is going to cost you more money. Overall though, I think the tent is a great option, and it's very comfortable, and I think it's definitely the best one to start with, in my opinion. Once you've braved a few nights stealth camping in a tent, maybe then you can start to branch out and try some of the other setups. Especially for stealth camping, it's a lot easier to find a stealthier spot amongst trees in a woodland, and that's where the hammock comes in. A hammock is a great way of camping once you get used to it, but it does take a little bit of getting used to, and you need to make sure you get the right kit. Here are some of the advantages and disadvantages of hammock camping, which I filmed a few months ago on a woodland camp. The advantages with hammock camping are that you can camp on a slope. Look at this, look at the ground. And you can camp on a slope where the ground is uneven, or even some rocks or whatever. Obviously you need trees, it's pretty obvious really, isn't it? But you can camp. Very flexible, isn't it? You can find somewhere, and also you can remain hidden, because amongst trees it's you're much less visible, you're hidden, it's much more stealthy. You also feel much more connected to your surroundings and to nature, because you're more open, depending on how you set your tarp up. It's very comfortable in a hammock, another advantage. Very comfortable once you get used to it. In certain locations you want to be off the ground, so that you're not such a risk of ticks and things like that. I would say the biggest advantage of hammock camping is it's more versatile, especially when you're hiding in woodlands, because you can find a place much easier generally than you could to pitch a tent. So after you've braved tent camping and hammock camping, then you maybe want to try the bivvy. Now the bivvy, I was a little bit afraid of at first. I thought, how can I sleep just in a sleeping bag and a bivvy? A bivvy is like a bag that goes over your sleeping bag, which means that in effect you're pretty much sleeping outdoors. So if you fancy sleeping under the stars, then that's what a bivvy is. It makes you much more versatile when planning stealth camps. In the link above, I show you my first bivvy camp. You can see I had a little bit of trepidation, wasn't sure what it was going to be like. So this is my first night actually out in the bivvy, in the open bivvy. No tarp. This could open up a whole new world of adventure, but I'll tell you in the morning what it's like. Will I sleep in there? Will I be claustrophobic? Will I get covered in condensation? Will I be cold? Have to wait and see. If you don't try, you don't know. Getting in that bivvy, you feel a little bit vulnerable at first, but I survived the night. So what are the advantages of using a bivvy? The first one is a bivvy takes up so little space, you can tuck in anywhere, you know, behind a rock, behind a hedge, behind some sort of fencing, and nobody's going to see you. So it's easy to find a place with a bivvy. You still need flat ground, but because the footprint is so small, you can find a place much easier than with a tent. Another advantage with a bivvy is it's very small and lightweight. I mean, my bivvy, I think, which is not the lightest one, but I think it weighs 600 grams. So if you go backpacking with a bivvy, then you're saving a lot of weight. It's not as heavy as a hammock and underquilt or a tent. In a bivvy, you're very low on the ground. It's very unlikely anyone's going to see you. And also, even in the wind, you're not going to blow off the side of a mountain in a bivvy. Another advantage with the bivvy is it's very liberating. Just having very quick to set up. You just roll out the bivvy, put your quilt in, inflate your mat, and that's it. So it's very stealthy because you can set up quickly and you can also leave pretty quickly as well. Much quicker than with a hammock and with a tent. Disadvantages of a bivvy are it can feel a bit claustrophobic at first, because once you put that bivvy over your head, you can feel a little bit claustrophobic. So you need to make sure that you know how to unzip it quickly, so you don't feel like you're trapped inside. You can get condensation if the bivvy is too close to your face, and if you don't have maybe a gap to let air into the bivvy. Another disadvantage of a bivvy is you don't really have anywhere to get changed. So if it's really pouring down, it's very difficult, isn't it, just to get inside the bivvy and stay dry, or to get changed into dry clothes. So that's why really with a bivvy you also do need to have a tarp to set up some sort of shelter across the entrance of your bivvy, so you can keep your gear dry and also get into the bivvy not soaking wet. And with a bivvy also you obviously need a flat piece of ground, because you can't sleep on a slope, but that flat piece of ground is much smaller, so often it is easier to find. Personally, I prefer to camp in dry weather in a bivvy, although I have camped in a torrential downpour in a bivvy, and because I've got quite a high quality bivvy, I stayed dry the whole night, even though it was torrential rain, and even with no tarp. So I mentioned a tarp. A tarp is a very versatile piece of kit. It's basically a waterproof sheet which you can hang up or tie up in various configurations, and you can use it for your hammock and for your bivvy. So here are some of my setups. You can even make a tarp tent, very versatile, and I think it's very handy to take with you, even as a cover, an emergency cover in a sort of a downpour. If you get caught out in a downpour, you can just take out the tarp, and I've just draped it over myself and just stayed dry until the storm has passed. So I'd really recommend you have a tarp and just play around with it, experiment in your garden, come up with some different setups. I came up with some of my own rather than just copying everybody else's. It's like a new hobby in itself, origami, just seeing what you can make out of that maybe 3x3 meter piece of material. I hope this is helpful and gives you some ideas. But what is my favourite setup for a stealth camp? I think it really depends on the situation. You know, where are you camping? What is the weather going to be? And what are you going to have to do to get to your location? If you're going to hike 20 miles, if you're like a through hiker, then you're going to be concentrating on keeping your weight down. But if you're going into the bushes just for a night, then maybe, and you're not walking far, then you can carry more equipment. So you know, what you're going to take with you is going to depend upon the weather and how far you're traveling. Because I'm looking at doing more through hiking, maybe walking 10, 15 miles, maybe 20 miles when I get fitter, and then camping, maybe walking till I drop, then I'm going to experiment more with taking the bivvy and the tarp and see how I get on with that. Because I want to keep my weight down, I'm going to use a bivvy and a tarp rather than carrying my tent. Okay, so if I've got to go for one setup at the moment, this may change. I would go for my favourite setup at the moment, I think, is the tarp and the bivvy. Mainly because it's lightweight, and also because I just love that experience of just sleeping out under the stars. I mean, it's incredible if you've not done that before. Maybe not have the bivvy zipped up totally, but just looking up, lying on your back, looking at the stars on a moonlit night with the stars, watching the wildlife. I mean, it's an incredible experience, and it's just sleeping out. It's just like what the cowboys used to do. I'm going for my favourite setup at the moment is a bivvy and a tarp. So I hope this is helpful. Maybe it's giving you something to think about. Why not try some different setups this year? Maybe you haven't got to buy all the kit straight away. Maybe just try one new setup and incorporate it into what you've already got. And let me know how you get on. And maybe leave in the comments, what's your favourite setup? What do you prefer to go stealth camping with? And then maybe we can share some ideas. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks very much for watching, and watch out for the March Stealth Camping Alliance Challenge, which is camping by a bridge. So I look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.